So I started this channel with this idea. When I think of the hardest times in my life, they were also the most lonely. And what got me through those times were things like shows and movies and books and certain YouTube channels. I kind of get the feeling that we're all going through hard times right now. And if I can in some way entertain people, or at least keep their minds off things for a while, then my work will have been worthwhile. So with that in mind, I decided to make my own late night talk show. Welcome to RadioFree Catgirl, the chillest corner of leftist YouTube. This show is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Hello my lovelies. It is February 11th of 2021. We are still in the midst of a global pandemic, and I just recently moved into my new place. I'm mostly all settled in. It's always like a weird experience moving because, really, you only move so many times in your life, right? I remember the first time I moved out, it was for school, and that just didn't pan out too well. So I moved back in with my parents, and I stayed there until my mid-20s. And after that, I was so depressed at that point in my life. I just had to get away from my own life, I just had to walk out on it, like a dad going for cigarettes and never coming back. So, when I was 26, I packed up all my stuff into my car and drove out to Vancouver. I didn't actually have enough money to move out, so I just lived out of my car for a while. I was homeless for 13 months, and it was quite an experience because, generally speaking, I never thought too much about classism in my day-to-day life. I lived out of my car, I bounced around shelters, I lived out of my van for a while, and there's a lot of things you take for granted when you're living in an actual place, having a mailing address, having a kitchen, having a bathroom. When I was living out of my car, I had to pee into bottles and then dump it out on the side of the road. Now I just dump my pee bottles in the kitchen sink like a civilized person. But it was a very difficult time for me. Vancouver is a city with many social problems that I am not nearly qualified enough to explain, but I do have that lived experience and I just wanted to talk about it for a bit. So there's a lot of subtle ways that society will screw you over when you're broke and homeless. I didn't have any of my IDs with me, and they were all expensive to replace. I didn't have any money. I tried to replace my driver's license, and they wouldn't do it for me because I didn't have an address. So I asked them, so homeless people just aren't allowed to drive? And they were like, yeah, basically. I had my Alberta driver's license, but you had to swap it over to a British Columbia driver's license. And if you don't, the cops can fine you. And speaking of the cops, that whole time I was living out of my car, I had to find somewhere to park where police wouldn't bother me, where criminals wouldn't bother me, or where nosy neighbors couldn't bother me. And it is very hard to find a spot with all of those requirements overlapping. I remember this one time I went into a bank and tried to open up a bank account so I could cash my checks from my job. And they told me they couldn't open a bank account for me because I didn't have an address. I said, okay, well, just use my parents' address. And they were like, no, we have to know where you're living. Which I don't understand why exactly, but that was what they told me, so I couldn't get a bank account from RBC. It wasn't all bad though. I remember this one time I was driving back to my usual spot that I parked in, which was behind the movie theater I worked at. And there was someone in my spot, and it was this guy in this big motorhome, and he was sitting in the driver's seat, and it was the middle of the night, and I've seen this motorhome on this block before, so I'm putting two and two together, and I realized, hey, he's probably living out of his car too. So this guy is in my spot, right? But The spot in front of him is still open, but I had to parallel park to get into that spot, which I don't know how to parallel park. So I'm spending like 15 minutes backing into the spot and then driving back out because I got the angle wrong and repeating it over and over again until I finally got it in. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy was watching me the whole time, and I was like, you must think I'm an idiot. So I decided to go around and talk to him, which is very unusual for me because I'm very introverted and I hate talking to people. I hate it. I hate people. I hate them and they're stupid. Well, what do you do for a living? Just shut the hell up. So I go talk to this guy, right? And I'm like, hey man, I see your motorhome here a lot. Do you live in the area? And he was like, yeah, I work here. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy's full of shit. Because there was no business in that area that was open late. So I just told him, I'm like, hey, I live out of my van. And his demeanor completely changed. He was like, no way, I'm living out of my motorhome. And we became friends from that day. And sometimes that's how you make friends. You embarrass yourself greatly and you move on. It works when you're 6 years old. It works when you're 26 years old. A wise person once said, life is nothing if not a series of embarrassments, and I feel that in my soul. The worst part of being homeless was just the crushing loneliness of it all. It's really hard to make friends when you're so ashamed of your situation. Anyone I did tell about my situation was actually usually pretty understanding, which was pleasant. I remember there was this YMCA I would hang out in the lobby of for like hours at a time, and I had a hoodie from the local university on, so I would just look like I was studying. I think the lady who worked there caught on because she started offering me food every night I was there. That whole time I was homeless, I felt isolated from society. But, there was definitely kindness from people. I remember one time I had gotten back to the shelter too late, and when that happens, they just give away your bed, and that's it, tough luck, you're on your own. So I came back too late, and they gave my bed away. Everything was closed, it was the middle of the night, and there was really nothing I could do about it. That night was really hard on me because that was the first time I didn't have the shelter or the car to live out of. That was the first night I was really on the streets. I remember walking over to the library and sitting on the steps and just thinking about all my choices that led up to that point. And, I was pretty sad. This security guard came up and talked to me. I guess he was just there to keep homeless people from sleeping on the steps. But I wasn't sleeping, so we just talked for a bit. He offered to buy me a coffee. He was a super nice dude. We just chatted about life for a bit. And I went on my way. I stayed up for 3 days straight until I could get into another shelter because I was so afraid of sleeping on the street. Eventually I found a place to move into, and it's been smooth sailing, more or less, ever since. I have different problems now, and my life is hard in different ways. But I think life is just always going to be hard on some level. Those 13 months were a struggle, and I'm lucky I made it out. So I was really fortunate to escape that whole situation because things could have turned out a whole lot worse. And you know what kept me going through that whole time? Optimism. I had this enduring belief that things could be better. And you know what? Eventually they were. Okay, so in this segment of the show, I like to respond to viewer fan mail. Lindsay from Connecticut says, Lauren, why are you so heckin' cute and valid? Well, Lindsay, thank you for writing. It's true, I am very cute and heckin' valid. The secret is, you have to make sacrifices to Satan. It's all on the trans agenda, right beneath Taco Night. Joanne Rowling from the UK says, Lauren, why are you such a better writer than I am? Also, I am a TERF. Well, Joanne, thank you for writing. It's true, I am a talented writer, and I'm actually working on a new novel. Once it's done, I'll tell you about it on the channel, and you'll all be able to read it. TD Canada Bank says, Lauren, your account is overdrafted by $1,300. Please contact us immediately. No. That one's actually real. Okay, but for real, if you want to get a hold of me, I am on Twitter at RadioFree Cats. If you're watching this, do me a huge favor and tweet a photo of your pet at me, and I'd like to include them in a new segment. So in this next segment of the show, I like to speak with other leftists and get a sense of who they are and what keeps them going. This time around, I got to speak with the lovely Gabby from Naruto's emails. She was kind enough to help me with my interviewing skills. You can tell I'm not quite there yet, but I'll get there eventually. I debated not posting this video out. You know who wins if we don't post things? The fascists, and none of us want that. So here's a clip from the interview. I'll be uploading the entire thing as its own separate video. Enjoy. Hello.
Hi.
Oh my
How
god.
are you?
Good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I really needed help with my interviewing skills, so I'm really glad you responded and showed up for me. So that'll help a lot. Thank you. Yeah. How's your day going?
Today's good. Surprisingly, this week is kind of rough. Grad school's online, especially, is a torture I would not wish on my worst enemy. But I am just plugging along, trying my best and trying not to think about like how bad it's been. So I'm handling it.
For sure.
How's your day?
It is 1 p.m. here in Vancouver, Canada, and it's honestly pretty early for me because I don't have my life together.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah. But no, this is good. Can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Gabby. I am the creator of Naruto's emails, formerly Rocky Raccoon, with a little bit of a name change there. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm currently a grad student studying medical science. I'm getting a master's in medical science.
That is so exciting. Okay. Can you tell me the story behind the name Naruto's emails? Because that's interesting to me.
Yeah, so I was talking to one of my friends who is also a Naruto fan.
Yeah.
And I was trying, I don't know why, but I had the inclination to want to have my name be somehow Naruto related.
Yeah.
I thought it would somehow help me algorithm-wise. I don't really think it did, but I just wanted something that was like kind of funny, but something had to do with like politics too. And I didn't really know how to thread the needle. But then I thought about, I don't know what to think about it. It came up in conversation, I don't know how, but we were talking about, the whole nonsense with Hillary's emails, like kind of right-wing talking point to try to capture like every single politician possible, even though that kind of, principle of using a separate server was not uncommon among many different people, including Republicans. But I just thought, oh, okay, well that's kind of related. So I'll just, instead of being Hillary, I'll just have Naruto emails instead.
Nice. I like
Especially like, considering he was Hokage. Obviously, I haven't seen him being involved in scandal. So that's
inadvertently involved. Yeah. Yeah. I actually have the same birthday as Naruto.
Really?
Yeah, October 10th. So, fun fact.
I like that.
Yeah. And, it's so funny, the email thing. I remember Ivanka got embroiled in the same thing, but did the right one complain about it? Nope.
Very hypocritical.
Yeah. Yeah, who cares? So I noticed you want to play Rocky Raccoon in your first video. What was the inspiration for that?
So I'm a huge Beatle fan, aside from being a Naruto fan.
Yes.
And I kind of wanted something to harken back to that. And it's a deep track, so it's not a song that was released as a single. And honestly, it's not even a good song. I don't even like it.
Yeah.
But if you're a Beatles fan, you'll know that's what it's referring to. At least I think you would.
Mm-hmm.
And that just already says something about me right off the bat.
Yeah.
And maybe that would kind of influence how you may view my politics if you also know that I'm a Beatles fan. That's kind of what I wanted, like, my channel to be, at least my name anyway, is to kind of harken back to something that's probably not directly related to the kind of topics that I would be directly covering on my channel. But it's something that, okay, if you are a fan of these kinds of things, you may also, you know, be more inclined to want to hear something that I have to say. And so it's, I guess, kind of a strategic thing in that sense. Though granted, I don't really know how that actually works in real time. I even think about, you know, how I navigate YouTube, and I don't necessarily think that somebody's name always is going to get me interested in listening to what somebody has to say.
Yeah.
I don't really think that that has ever intrigued me or has ever harkened to something that I was also interested in. Very rarely has that ever happened. And I can't even think of something where it happened. So that's why I say rarely, just in case something in my subconscious remembers that, but I just can't personally access it right now. But that's kind of like where I was coming from with trying to have these two different names, which is like two different aspects of who I am as a person. But now you definitely know both of my aspects of me being a Beatles fan and also being a Naruto fan. I'm not an anime fan, just like Naruto, which makes me the basic of all people. I went through a very weird phase when I was like in 6th grade this summer before, and I was like, I need to just watch all of Naruto for some reason, because it was apparently free on Hulu.